Yes Guy, hour number 2 on a Monday for OverDrive. Jim, Tatti, and Dave Feschuk subbing. The regulars are off. Hazy B off for the entire week. Wow.
Got to get that AC fixed.
I know. Bit of a problem, isn't it?
Seems to be a huge problem for him.
An ongoing issue.
Yes.
Yeah, he's got a roster problem. The AC unit is weak. Got to go to the bullpen. Steve Phillips will be here in mere seconds. So the Jays against the Orioles. I was going to say the Orioles against the Jays. What's the difference? I don't know. But obviously, Jays hosting. Bassett tonight, Ryu tomorrow night, Kikuchi on Wednesday, Thursday it's Gosman, and that still leaves you with Manoah and Barrios for later on in the week, which is, when you look at the names and what they're capable of, that's a pretty steep rotation.
Really good. Yeah, that's what you want. And look, they got of all the problems they've had this year, and they've had their problems. We know about the not hitting with runners in scoring position, and the various other sloppiness that has plagued them at times. Maybe nothing has been more damning about the prospects of this team than their record against the AL East, right?
Well, that's a problem. 7-20. That's bad.
7-20, and you look at the AL East, and it's guess what? Baltimore's in town. They're 21-13 against the AL East. It's one of the reasons they're leading the AL East.
Baltimore's left no table scraps.
Yeah.
On any issue.
And I guess, look, it's good that they, this is a year where they've changed the schedule. It used to be, 19 games against the AL East, each AL East opponent. Now it's been cut down to whatever it is, 13. But, you still play your division a lot. And if you can't beat them, it's pretty hard to do what you're trying to do. So the Blue Jays got to turn that around. And look, the idea would be that they're due against these guys and every other team in the AL.
I mean, that's literally how you look at all their issues.
Yeah.
Whether it's a defensive lapse or Springer having a problem with the leadoff batter, or relief problems, or starting pitching problems, or just everything meshing together. You could look at it and say it's about to turn. Mm-hmm. Every one of those issues.
Yeah. But then again, everybody, when Baltimore ran out to the season they started having, a lot of people thought that would turn. And guess what?
It hasn't.
It hasn't yet. I mean, Tampa, same thing. Tampa's had their struggles, and it hasn't gone as well as it did out of the gate, where they were the hottest team in baseball. But yeah, sometimes it doesn't turn around in the 162. You got to wait for another year.
Joining us now on the Maple Toyota Hotline is Steve Phillips, our resident TSN MLB analyst. Steve, welcome. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing great. Good to be with you guys.
Our pleasure to have you. So let's just get right into the Springer thing right off the top. They shifted him to number 5 in the weekend. It didn't work. He's not in the starting lineup tonight. How do you fix something like that?
Well, I would say that it worked only because I think they had the right guy in the leadoff spot, right?
Yeah.
So, I think in some regards it certainly helped the offensive production. Merrifield's playing out of his mind. I think this is what you do. You move the guy's spot in the lineup. Then you give him a break. I'm sure he's taking extra hitting. You got to clear his mind a little bit. And so, this is the process you go through to try to get a guy back on track again. Look, George Springer's a really good player. The back of the baseball card said so. And he's in a rut. It's not the first time. It won't be the last time. It's probably a little more extended than anybody would have thought, but they're just going to keep grinding it out with him. But this is what you do. You've got to let him clear his mind right now, because when you're struggling like this, and you're a player who cares, it becomes obsessive. Like, I played 7 years in the minor leagues with obsession about struggles and trying to do better and over-trying and feel like you're letting people down and feel like you have to get a hit. When you think like that, you don't have great plate discipline. You chase pitches out of the zone. You try too hard. And days off, and listen, I won't be surprised if they win today, that he's going to have another day off, just to let him clear his mind a little bit and get away from all of the bad thinking, to where he can start to get in there and just maybe get a bloop base hit that can start to turn his luck around.
Well, let me ask you this, Steve. For all the guys who have struggled, the Blue Jays obviously still holding tight to a wild card spot. And what does it do for a clubhouse to see the management do what Ross Atkins did on the weekend and acquiring Jordan Hicks, giving up a couple of AA pitchers, even though Hicks does not have that vaunted club control that the Blue Jays have always talked about. He's an unrestricted free agent in the offseason. What would that do for this clubhouse in your mind, for Ross Atkins to make a move that suggests, hey, it's about now?
Yeah, that's a big move, because it's not just a move to try to help them get to the playoffs. This is the kind of move that makes you a scary team in the playoffs. one of the things the Blue Jays learned last year when they ran into the buzzsaw that was the Seattle Mariners is that power dominating swing and miss stuff out of the bullpen is really valuable in October. To be able to come in and get strikeouts instead of, productive outs where a guy puts the ball in play, it's a major difference. And Hicks is that kind of guy. I mean, he's been registered as high as 105. His average fastball is 101 miles per hour. I mean, it's just absolutely phenomenal. And so that sort of overpowering stuff, it protects them right now with Romano being on the injured list. And so they've got a guy that can close. But when Romano comes back, it really does shorten the game for John Schneider, that there's less pressure on the starters to have to go 7 innings because you've got, 3 or 4 relievers that you can mix and match in multiple days to be able to shorten the game, dominate, shut down the opposition. And so I think it's a really good move. And so between Genesis Cabrera and Hicks, you got 2 quality guys with power stuff at the end of the game. Now, ideally, I'd still like to get a swingman, just, like a Trevor Williams from the Nationals or a Paul Blackburn from the A's, a guy that could be a starter or a reliever, maybe an upgrade on a Mitch White. Somebody just to build in some depth in case somebody does go down in August or September, that they've got somebody who's a little more competitive than Mitch White has been. And then I do still think they need that right-handed bat to complement Varsho and Belt between DH and left field.
So if they were to get all of what you said there, do you think they have a shot at winning that division, or is that Baltimore's territory?
I think it's going to be really tough to win the division right now. I mean, that would be, it would have to take Baltimore collapsing a bit, Tampa Bay collapsing a bit in order for the Jays to get there. And, Tampa Bay just made a move today getting Aaron Savali from the Cleveland Guardians, who's really got an outstanding curveball. He's pitched well this year. They gave up a top-flight first-base prospect to do it. The Guardians could use the offense. And so I think that, with those 2 teams improving still, too, although the Orioles haven't done much yet, it's going to be interesting to see what they do as all these starting pitchers come off the board. But I think catching them, it would take more than the Blue Jays getting hot. It would take those 2 teams in front of them really falling apart, and I just don't see that happening.
What did you make of Alek Manoah on Saturday? Obviously, it did not end well. He was pulled for the game after he hit Taylor Ward in the face, and obviously Ward was injured on the play. It was a terrifying moment at the ballpark, and I'm sure the Jays and everybody else that loves baseball wish Ward well, Steve. But obviously a tough moment for Alek Manoah, who has struggled with his control. That was obviously an extreme example of a ball that got away from him. But how much can they count on this guy? Have we learned enough to know what they can count on from Alek Manoah between here and the end of the season?
Yeah, I don't, if they go with their top 4 pitchers in the postseason, starters, I don't know that he makes it right now. I would think that there's probably more confidence, and we'll see what Ryu brings into the mix as he comes back. But I think that I actually trust Kikuchi a little bit more than I do Manoah right now. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I do. And certainly Barrios and Bassett and Gosman. Gosman good last time out. And so for Manoah, my big thing for him, and as you watch him, when he misses to up and in to the right-hander. It's all the time. And that's how he hit Ward. It's how he hits other guys. It's how he misses. And it's because of his mechanics where his arm drags behind his body, where his body rushes down the slope of the mound. His arm doesn't get caught up and out in front, so his arm is left behind, and he leaves everything up and in to right-handed. And so when he's mechanically right, if he can throw his fastball to the outside corner. He just is really pitching to one side of the plate right now, and and he's still working on the mechanics. It'll be interesting to see how he's able to shake off hitting Ward next time out when he comes back. If it's in his head at all, we'll see. Maybe what it'll do is get him to really think about, I need to get that arm out in front. I need to get the extension out in front. I need to be able to reach to the outside corner of the plate with my fastball so that he can start to get away from this missing up and in.
So that adjustment you're talking about, how tricky is that?
Well, it's the thing that they were working on when they sent him to the minor leagues. And so, and look, it's even when he was good last year, when he gets out of sync, that's what he does. And, you know, but what happens is when you rush toward the hitter, when your body lunges toward the hitter and your arm drags behind, oftentimes that's emotional, where you're over-trying, you're overexerting, you're trying to make a perfect pitch, or it's mental, where you're thinking, boy, I've got to generate more velocity. I've got to really make a pitch right here. And it can lead to, you know, the way you feel and think can affect how you move mechanically. And so, yeah, it's complicated because there's multiple levels and factors that go into why a pitcher's mechanics get up. And it's not only about his body, it's also about his mind and his heart. And so I think that's the balance that they keep trying to work on with him to manage all of those aspects of his game.
Steve, you've been a GM at deadline time, trying to make that calculation of, you know, should I go for it? Should we not go for it? Now that there's the extra wild card, is August 1 too early? Like, the Blue Jays got 56 games left. There's so much can happen between now and the end of the season. Is it too early to have to make a call on, should we go all in? Should we be sellers? Should we be buyers? And does Major League Baseball have to think about moving the deadline with the extra wild card?
Well, when I was GMing, we had the trade deadline on the 31st, and then you could make waiver deals. Now they've eliminated the waiver deals. There are a lot of teams that, not necessarily the Blue Jays, because the Blue Jays, if it ended today, they're in the playoffs, and they're clearly a buy team in buy mode. But there are a lot of teams that seem to be in limbo, and there are multiple levels of thought on this. Some believe, that it's in the right spot where teams just have to decide, am I in or am I not? Others believe that moving it back to maybe August 15th would give teams a little more time to sort through what they are. The problem is that if you're only going to get a guy for a month and a half versus 2 months, the value of the player you're getting in a trade goes down a little bit, and it may cause teams to pay less at the trade deadline than they might be able to pay right now. And so I think there's, the fact that, and there are some who argue, move it up, make teams really make a decision early. And it maybe if you got people saying move it up, but some people are saying move it back, maybe it's in the right spot.
Steve, Scherzer goes to the Rangers, and the Mets may be moving Verlander as well. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the Scherzer move didn't completely surprise me. Now, I probably wouldn't have traded him, even understanding that he was going to be overpriced for next year. But if money's not a factor, and it doesn't seem to be for the Mets, then why not at least take a good aging pitcher and take whatever you can get from him, because he's still going to be better than a lot of the pitchers in the free agent market next year. And so when you trade him and you think you're going to compete next year, well, then you're going to have to replace him. Now, I am a little bit surprised. Now the Rangers were able to get the money down to where he's only going to cost them $23 million for the rest of this year and next year combined. And in that regard, that's probably not a bad price for Scherzer. That being said, his fastball velocity is down. His spin rates are down on both his slider and his fastball. Again, because remember the whole pine tar situation, he's been very affected by not being able to use that. And so I found it interesting that they went all in on him after it seemed like they were really in on Verlander. They pivoted and went to Scherzer. Now, it may have been that the price for Verlander was too much. I wouldn't trade Verlander if I'm the Mets. He's pitching like the Cy Young Verlander, and I don't care if he wants to get traded. You've got him under contract, and if you think you're going to have a chance to win next year, I keep him and let him pitch. And so I don't think he's going to get moved. If he does, the Dodgers seem to be the most obvious landing spot because they've got the biggest impactful farm system and maybe the payroll to be able to do it. But I was a little surprised overall that even Verlander's being talked about. And, the Mets are going to have to regroup and figure out who they are for next year.
Almost 24 hours and 45 minutes till the trade deadline. How busy do you expect tomorrow to be?
Oh, I think we're going to be busy tonight and tomorrow. The Orioles haven't really made their moves yet. They need a starter and a reliever. I think the Dodgers have more work to do. I think the Jays have work to do. There's speculation that the Minnesota Twins are listening on Sonny Gray and Kenta Maeda. Now, the Twins are in first place right now in the American League Central, and they're talking about trading two of their better starters. And I think teams are looking at it thinking that there's maybe a premium being put on starting pitching, and it might be worth doing. Seattle's talking about trading, Ty France and Teoscar Hernandez potentially. You've got a lot of names still circulating out there to get moved. You wonder what the Cubs are going to do. Are they going to trade Marcus Stroman? There's speculation now that Dylan Cease from the White Sox, who has controllability 2 years beyond this year, that they may try to move him here at the deadline. And so I think there's still a lot of chatter out there that we're looking at some potential big deals still to be made.
So the Angels, obviously, they were the focus for so long, Steve, and they apparently have taken Ohtani off the market. I know you were on here talking about how this is essentially baseball malpractice was the phrase that you used that everybody remembers, and I think it was a great forceful point you made. But, looking at it a little more closely over the past handful of days, looking at it from the owner's perspective, could you see the pressure he was under to say, look, I can't let this guy go. Like, I've got to do everything I can to try and re-sign him, because the worst thing to do would be let him go now and not even have a chance to convince him to stay.
Yeah, so, that is a logic that I would buy if it was an owner who was in it for the long haul.
Right.
But remember, Art Moreno put the team up for sale last year. Then he pulled it back off the market. I think he realized, why don't I just get every last dollar out of Ohtani's time here? But he's not in it for the long term. His decision to not trade him was short-sighted. And it was about, he said that Ohtani was worth $20 million to them over the final 2 months of the season, the last 29 home games. And so he looked at it and thought, well, let me cash out on him, because the right move would be to get prospects. And it's, because their chances to make the playoffs, right, as soon as they said they're in, they lose 2 out of 3 to the Blue Jays. They now go to Atlanta to play the Braves right now, who are playing out of their minds as they just swept the Milwaukee Brewers and scored 29 runs in 3 games. And so, they're 4 games out. It could have been 6 if they had lost that game yesterday in extra innings to the Blue Jays. With all of the teams in front of them, I just don't look at them as a playoff team. And I think the owner, I think it had nothing to do with pressure of trying to keep them. I think it was really, and look, he's an owner. It's a business. He has every right to squeeze every last dollar out of his business. But I really do believe that's what it was about. And it really wasn't about what's in the best interest of the baseball franchise.
What do you think the Yankees are going to do, if anything, Steve?
Boy, Domingo Germán was a scratch from the game tonight for them. They're in trouble. The Yankees are in trouble. Luis Severino, I don't know if he's going to get another out at the Major League level this year. He's getting hit around 7 runs in the first inning yesterday, 9 runs total. They're a mess. Judge back in the lineup, but remember, he couldn't play yesterday because they've got to try to rest him some, too, with this toe. I just don't know that they have a run in them to be able to make a run. So there's talk that they'd be in on Jamer Candelario, but I think there's 7 or 8 teams in on Candelario who's having a great season for the Nationals. And I think there's going to be a lot more competition and people willing to pay more than the Yankees. The Yankees need starting pitching, bullpen, outfielder, and maybe third base. And that's an awful lot to go get when you're, 3.5 games out of the wild card. And even that may not get you there if Aaron Judge isn't healthy. So I don't know how active the Yankees are going to be at all. They'll be buyers, if anything. They don't have that much. Really look at them as being a real threat right now in that playoff race in the American League.
Steve, thanks very much. Appreciate it.
You got it. My pleasure as always, guys.
Steve Phillips, he joined us in the Maple Toyota hotline. Build your next dream Toyota at Maple Toyota, and check out Maple Toyota's pre-owned inventory arriving daily. Guy, it's time to Toyota. Visit mapletoyota.com. So as we're doing that conversation, I thought I put my real estate hat on, and so I'm thinking to myself, if I was selling this team, what would be the better pitch? You could buy the Angels with Ohtani or without Ohtani.
What do you think?
Well, I think you want him.
I think you obviously want him, of course.
But having said that, what's he going to get? Re-signed. Because you're not buying this for 1 year. This is a long-term plan. So if the guy selling it to you already, forks over $60 million to keep this guy, you'd have to make it work. You'd have to find a way to make that work.
You would.
The other way is just a non-option.
The picture Steve paints there is pretty grim, right? Like it's a grim picture of a mercenary owner who's essentially just trying to maximize the dying days of Ohtani's reign.
Carney operator.
In Anaheim. And now, I guess the alternative view of that, if you wanted to be more optimistic about that, you would say, look, the one thing we don't have any insight into is what does Ohtani want to do, right? Like, there's been no leaks. Yeah. There's been no chatter. There's been his agency, CAA, has not been leaking where he might want to sign next summer. Hasn't been, there's the only thing we've heard is that he's happy in Anaheim. He chose Anaheim, coming from Japan.
Yep.
He had his pick of wherever he wanted to go, and he chose to be there. There's this talk that he really likes the fact that they don't make him do anything like outside of baseball. They don't, trot him around and try and get him to do all the promotional stuff that some teams would want a guy to do. They just let him look. He's pitching and he's hitting, so that's enough.
We're getting double duty anyway. What else do you want out of the guy?
And there's always the speculation that if he went to another team with more marketing ambition, they would want him to do a bunch of other stuff that he wouldn't want to have anything to do. But the point I'm making is that we don't know what he wants. Now, obviously, like anybody else, he's probably going to go where the money is the biggest, but within reason, right? He's going to have money no matter what.
Yeah, well, money's not going to be a problem. I think it's what the marketing plan or what the business plan is outside of baseball. Whoever presents that, so whoever buys that team. We don't know what industry they're already in. There might be some creativity there.
Yeah.
Or maybe he goes to, as we've said before, a big market like New York, LA, or Chicago, and they can do something with him outside of just having the baseball player. And I shouldn't say just the baseball player, because it's the outlier of all time. That's a fabulous story on its own, but there's opportunity to do something else with that.
And that's probably, in large part, has nothing to do with bothering Ohtani on a game day. It's just about, you market in Japan, you sell a bunch of ads that the digital advertising nowadays, you can swap out, the Japanese ads for the North American ads, depending on which broadcast feed you're sending over and all the rest of it. But on top of all that, like, I guess the point that I agree with Steve that it's a risky move, but because you don't know what he wants to do. And all he's really said is he's tired of losing, which is fair. But if these guys they're right now 4 games out of a wild card. If Trout comes back and they can make a run, I mean, who knows
somebody has to stumble in front, though. That's like talking about the Jays winning the division. They could play lights out, but somebody's got to fall on their face in front of them.
Yeah. Well, that's true. Yeah, you're right. And Baltimore, 4 games up. I mean, 4 games isn't, Tampa's 4 games up. It's not insurmountable. 5.5 behind Baltimore as we speak right now.
I find these stories, we're talking Toronto, when you're dealing with the Jays, glass half full, glass half empty, or how, you're happy with where they are based on not getting full production out of everybody. When you deal with the Raptors, you're going, so do they keep Siakam or trade him? And how does that work out? And when you deal with the Leafs, it's like you're over the cap, and what do you do with Nylander? And it's just, there's a lot of stuff there. And for me, these are franchise-defining moments for all 3.
They are.
And if you manage them properly, you go on to bigger and better things. If you mismanage them, look out.
It can get worse.
Yeah.
It can get worse. And I think the Blue Jays are in the most favorable position of those 3 teams right now by quite a margin, aren't they? I mean,
yeah.
Only because, look, I mean, they've shown that they've got the ability to be a World Series contender in my mind. So I don't think the Leafs have shown much. I mean, where have the Leafs shown that they can make the long run to 16 wins in the springtime? I mean, they got 4 against Tampa, and then suddenly they reverted to being a team that doesn't show up on certain nights, and they got absolutely lambasted by Florida.
Yeah, even if you could talk yourself into somehow they got through the Panthers, you couldn't see them going any further because you saw what it takes to get there.
Right.
They don't have that.
They just didn't have it. I mean,
no.
You can't have no-show nights. And like they did in Game 3 down 0-2. That was one of the worst performances of this 7-year run with Matthews and Marner at the head of the class. And it just,
wasn't quite as bad as the Zamboni driver night.
It wasn't quite that bad. But, I mean, the thing is, Jim, like, it's funny how I know we talked about Team Canada and the litany of disappointment for the men's national team in basketball. And here we got the new coach, Jordy Fernandez, saying today, well, maybe that disappointment in Victoria is going to be the thing that propels us. And when you're new to the situation, I remember Tim Lewicki rolling into town and saying, that collapse in Boston in 2013, That could have been the best thing that ever happened to the Leafs.
Well, now we know it wasn't.
Well, exactly. It's like sometimes you're just like, no, it's not that.
Yeah.
It's just another bleak moment for a franchise that just can't figure it out.
Tim made one mistake. He planned the Stanley Cup parade route.
It was a big mistake.
Kiss of death.
Oh, also took Johnny Bauer's photos off the wall.
Kiss of death, right
I
there.
got Johnny quite upset.
Yeah,
It wasn't just about Johnny. All the old great black and white ones. Remember that when he took those down?
Way to erase the alumni. That always worked.
That was really a nice move by Lewicki. But other than that, Lewicki, hey, he brought in, he got the Raptors championship. He got the MLS Cup. The Shanny hire, well.
Yeah, he did a lot of good, but we'll step out because there's anticipation in the air. Yes Guy, No Guy is next. This is OverDrive on TSN 2 and TSN 1050. Oh, Yes Guy. OverDrive. Jim, Tatti, Dave Feschuk with you. Coming up at the top of the hour, David Naylor talking CFL and NFL. He's in various NFL camps. I believe he's in Atlanta now. Was in Buffalo earlier. Yeah, he's in Atlanta now. Later on, Brendan Dunlop will be by to talk soccer as Canada goes out to Australia 4-0. In the wee hours of the morning. OverDrive is brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. And this is exciting.
Yes Guy, No Guy.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, drivers and passengers, time now for the OverDrive edition of Yes Guy, No Guy. And I'm going to lead it off because the grappler stiffed us today. But meanwhile, and by the way, the grappler left his house. It started to rain. He turned back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Soft move.
Weak.
It's a soft society.
It is. Nonetheless, we press on. The Blue Jays need to take at least 3 games from the Orioles this week if they want a shot at the AL East crown. Yes Guy, No Guy.
This is a resounding yes guy. You got to get the better of these guys finally because we just talked about it. Like they've been brutal against their own division. 7-20 against the AL East. Guess what their record is against these Baltimore Orioles? A ridiculously bad 1 win against 5 losses thus far. You can't be getting pounded by your own division and expect to win the division. So yeah, this has got to be a resounding win of this home series against the Orioles.
I'm going to say yes guy as well, but I'm going to also add the qualifier. They could win all 4 and still not win the East.
Yes, that's also a rather grim possibility,
yes.
Mr. Tatti. I agree with that. Obviously, these games are not make or break. There's 56 games remaining. There's a long way to go here. A lot of horizon to cover. But the bottom line is you got to start winning against these teams.
Well, and they've got
the Orioles are front and center as the number 1 team in the East.
As the schedule closes out, they've got the Tampa Yankees double dip.
Right.
So there's plenty of opportunity there, although you'd like to be able to defeat or at least put a dent in the team you're trying to chase.
Right, exactly. That's the point I'm making here.
Then we're talking about the AL East crown. That's the Orioles.
You got to get one. You got to get one over on these guys, and there's no time like the present.
Yes guy, no guy number 2. Jonathan Taylor remains with the Indy Colts to start the season.
I'm going to go yes guy on this too because we just heard it from the owner himself, and of course the owner of the Colts, Jim Irsay, has found himself in the midst of controversy, obviously, for his comments about Mr. Taylor. I don't think we have sound on that, but I think people have probably heard the gist of it. Essentially, Irsay said, if I die tonight and Jonathan Taylor is out of the league, no one's going to miss us. Yeah, the league goes on. We know that. The National Football League rolls on. It's a privilege to be a part of it. Problem is, Jim Irsay is rich. If he dies today, he's going to be, giving away some money. I'm assuming his estate will take care of many generations of Irsay. And Jonathan Taylor is in this class of running backs that wants to get paid and maybe be rich one day. But with the current state of pay for running backs in the National Football League, it's a tough slog. Yeah. And I'm with Taylor on this. Like you gotta negotiate hard for yourself. And I think Jim Irsay is putting his foot in it by ganging up on essentially what is a little guy here. This is a guy just asking for his meager share of the NFL's multi-billions. And the idea that he's standing strong and the Colts owner is treating him in this fashion, I don't think it's going to play well.
Yeah, I'm going to go no guy. I don't think he remains with the Colts. I don't think he's on the roster. I don't think he's signed. I think they just sort of stiff him.
Yeah.
He's sort of in limbo. He's suspended or not signed or whatever. He's not on the roster in my books.
Irsay has said he's not going to trade him. I guess he's been texting reporters saying we're not trading him now. We're not trading him in October. It is a standoff. There's no doubt about it. It doesn't feel like it's going to end well. Usually these things, though, I mean, the owner pops off, management and the player get together in a room where the players.
This owner's kind of a non-compromising individual.
Well, maybe he is, but I also think, look, he's been chastened by bad publicity before. This isn't good for him. I'm sure he realizes that, and it's not good to go to war. Jonathan Taylor's performing like he's doing his job, and to treat him this way, he's essentially their best offensive player. This isn't just another guy who's asking for too much money. This is a guy who deserves this money, and it's a tough situation for these running backs. Look, I rarely feel for professional athletes, Jim, who are not getting paid what they feel is commensurate with their performance. But given the shortness of NFL careers, essentially the average running back career goes 3 years.
Yeah.
Like these guys are right to stand up for themselves and try and figure out a system that works better for them. Because right now with this franchise tag system, it pays running backs relative peanuts. And especially when you have a team like the Colts that built its offense around the run, and Taylor performed pretty well in that offense. I mean, if fairness was a thing, and we know fairness is not a thing in pro sports, nothing's fair, but if fairness was a thing, running backs would get a fairer shake.
I'm all for people getting paid. Like that's not my point here. My point is the owner is, for lack of
he's
a better,
stuck in.
Yeah, for lack of a better phrase, a bit of a stick in the mud. So that's why I said what I said. It's got nothing to do with the player.
You may well be right.
Yeah. Yes, guy, no guy. Number 3, Damian Lillard will be dealt before the season, but not guy to the Miami Heat.
I'm going to go no guy on this. I don't think this is going to happen. I mean, if it hasn't happened right now, and I know the Donovan Mitchell trade didn't happen last offseason until September. These things can take time. It can be a slow brew. But it just feels like, if it hasn't happened now, I think that's my feeling with the Pascal Siakam situation. Like there was a lot of talk around the Summer League. Oh, when are they going to trade Siakam? When are they going to trade Siakam? They didn't trade Siakam. And guess what? If they haven't by now, the deal's probably not in place, and the deal's probably not going to happen. It's not to say it can't, but if I'm betting on probability here, I'm a no guy on literally getting moved. And especially now that the NBA sent out this memo trying to, get, chasing these guys for essentially threatening other teams not to trade for Lillard. That doesn't exactly bode well for this trade going through.
So this is like a yes guy and a no guy in one. Damian Lillard will be dealt before the season. Yes guy, but not to the Miami Heat. No guy, he'll go to the Heat. And I think that's why the NBA did what it did, because it's inevitable and they want to look like they're doing the right thing, their due diligence, by saying you shouldn't really talk about this. We know it's going to happen, but ixnay.
Yeah, so you think he will be dealt to the Heat before the season?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Okay. Yes guy, no guy. Number 4, the Detroit Lions will reach the playoffs this season. No brainer guy.
Oh, says Mr. Lions fan, lifetime Lions fan. No, you're right though. I'm a yes guy. I'm a yes guy. I don't think it's a no brainer necessarily. But there
depends on which side of the desk you're on. Over here, it's a no brainer.
It's a no brainer for you. This will be an interesting season because we have, two of the all-time underachieving franchises in National Football League history have glimpses of hope in your Detroit Lions and, of course, the New York Jets, who's always find a way.
Quarterback graveyard suddenly as a quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. So who do you believe in more when it comes to historical ineptitude being reversed?
So Lions and Jets in the Super Bowl.
Oh,
is that what you're saying?
Is that the way we're going?
I wonder what the fan duel is on that.
Oh my gosh, I don't love those odds, but wouldn't that be a storyline?
Yeah. Yes guy, no guy. Number 5. It's a mistake by the Angels not trading Ohtani.
I'm a no guy. I think they had to keep him. I really do, and I understand Steve Phillips really sketches out the baseball malpractice argument. Well, you got to get some assets.
It's a great line, by the way.
It is a great line, and it stuck with me. And I think Steve coined it, and I do think there's a great argument to be made there. But my thing, look, it's going to be bad either way. Like trading him for parts at the deadline, there's no sure thing when it comes to prospects. You may get a handful of prospects. One of them may turn out. All of them may not. Or maybe they all turn out. You don't know. But there's zero certainty in what you're going to get. But I'll tell you what, when he leaves, he ain't coming back, right? So so to me, you had to try. Like, it's not going to be good either way unless you can re-sign him, but you had to at least try and keep him. And maybe he's going to need a miracle playoff run because you're 4 games back of the wild card right now, and Trout's still hurt. But if Trout can come back and they can make that run and at least sniff some semblance of success, give Mike Trout more than 3 career playoff games that he's had, and give Ohtani, just the smidgen of a taste of what it's like to have a little bit of success, maybe you got a chance. But if you trade him, you got no chance. I just felt like they had to keep the chance alive.
So you're saying, yes, guy, it was a mistake?
No, I'm saying it was not a mistake because
so you're
they
saying
had
no
to
guy.
try.
Yeah.
They had to try.
Yeah. I'm going to say no guy as well. I think that it wasn't a mistake. I just don't like the liquidation that goes on in pro sports when, they're throwing in the towel. Well, you've got a legitimate chance. Why would you do that?
Yeah. You and Masai Ujiri.
Yeah.
Like that. No, I don't know. I'm kind of being facetious there. This is a totally different situation, but this is like the most extreme situation of trading away a player that you just can't replace, and it will never.
No,
be replaced.
that's
It's a one-off.
I said fork in the road on other subjects. This is an absolute franchise changer to have him leave.
Yeah,
and especially while you're in a wild card race.
And that's the thing. If it turns out that all you get out of this is the wild card race between now and the end of the season, 50 plus more games, and if it's Artie Moreno, the owner, saying, "Well, that's worth $20 million to me, and I'm going to recoup my investment on this guy," guess what? Well, owners wanting to make money is just what owners do.
Yeah.
And the idea that, hey, something magical could happen because you got a magical player in Ohtani and you got a magical player in Trout. If Trout can come back from that broken hand, maybe they can find some magic. Maybe they can turn it around, even though it's very unlikely. I understand the FanGraphs probability of that happening is not particularly good. But, to me, the certainty of just letting him go, I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I'm the GM of that team, tomorrow at 6 o'clock.
I don't know how much sympathy there would be for a Major League Baseball owner to grind out an additional $20 million in revenue.
Yeah.
I mean, what's that to him?
Well, nobody cares. No one's going to cry.
What's
for
that?
owners.
Like $20K to anybody else?
Yeah, I don't even know what that means to Artie Moreno. I would assume he's, sitting on a pile of cash. If he's going to sell this franchise, it's going to be worth, how many billion, we don't know. Nobody's crying for Artie Moreno, but that's how owners calculate, right? They calculate.
That's my new book title, Crying for Artie Moreno.
Yeah. I understand. But that Steve's point is a good one, but I don't think that's the essence of the point here. I don't care about the owner. I care about the fans. I care about trying to tell the fans we did everything we could to try and keep them. We exhausted every last possibility. We tried to make a playoff run. We didn't, if they get there or not. Now, if they don't get there, they can say, look, we gave you what we could give you. We won Ohtani in the initial sweepstakes. We're going to lose him in the next free agent sweepstakes because he's going somewhere else. He doesn't want to be here anymore. But that'll be his decision. It won't be the Angels' decision. And they'll say, we tried our best.
And ladies and gentlemen, we have the final yes guy, no guy for this segment in this particular show. Usually there's a round of applause there, but out of respect for yes guy, no guy, there is none. One of two things will happen in this CFL season. The Elks will go winless at home, or the Argos will go undefeated everywhere.
Whoa. You're going for an undefeated Argos season or an Elks?
Winless at home.
Winless at home.
Winless at home.
Oh, man. Well, what's been more bankable than the Elks losing at home? It's hard to bank against the Elks losing at home. So if I had to, how was the question framed?
One of two things will happen.
Yes.
So
I would say yes. One of those two things will happen. Yes, guy. One of those two things will happen, and it will be the Elks failing to win a game at vaunted Commonwealth Stadium.
I'm going to go no guy. I think the Elks will snap that home winless streak, and I also believe that the Argos will not go undefeated because I don't see the relevance of that.
Yeah.
Seems
kind of like
in the CFL, you got to play your best football at the end.
It's a good point.
Yeah, the start.
What's the point?
Start is nice, but Grey Cup's always handed out in late November. So
good point.
Yeah, so we'll leave it at
football.
So that concludes Yes Guy, No Guy. Everything's signed and sealed. Coming up next, a derivative of Yes Guy, No Guy, something to chew on. This is OverDrive on TSN 2 and TSN 1050. OverDrive, Jim, Tatti, and Dave Feschuk with you on a Monday. And now time for Something to Chew On. Something to Chew On is brought to you by Boston Pizza. This summer, whether you're in Moose Jaw or Moncton, there's a BP patio near you. Join us for a long lunch or a late night. See you for a pint on the patio soon. See you for a pint on the patio soon.
Yes, guy.
Boston Pizza. So here's something to chew on. Who is more likely to be dealt by the start of the regular season, Pascal Siakam or William Nylander?
Man, if I'm chewing on a pizza and a pint on the patio over this one, Tapman, I got to go Nylander. I don't think either trade is particularly likely before the start of the season, as we just discussed.
Really?
Well, I don't think they're going to trade Siakam. I think they would have traded him by now. I really do. If they were going to trade him before the start of the season. I think that a lot of the work gets done in the NBA, between the free agency period, the summer league. There's discussions there. And maybe, if it was discussions that happened at summer league, it probably would have been done by now. And then with the NHL, I think, look, we've been down this road with Nylander before. We know he stands firm. We know his agent, Louis Gross, has been known to, be a sphinx in terms of negotiating. Doesn't give you too much, just tells you what he wants and then waits. I think it's pretty clear there's a separation between what William Nylander wants and what Brad Treliving and the Leafs are willing to pay. But I think that could take a while to come to a head.
Okay, so what actually brings it to the head? I mean, because Nylander, you would assume, is not going to change.
Mm-hmm.
We know the figure out there; it's $10 million. If you're a general manager and you know that's not going to happen, then do you wait for the trade deadline? Would seem precarious to do that. It just seems that you want to be ahead of this.
It would be precarious. The whole situation's precarious.
Well, it is.
Sure.
Yeah, but you're also over the cap.
You're over the cap.
So you need to move some salary out one way or the other.
Yeah, but it doesn't need to be William Nylander. It doesn't need to be that dramatic.
Well, okay, so that's sort of where they are, though. A salary has to go out, and whoever comes back has to be paid less but make the team better.
Good luck with that.
That's a nice combo, isn't it?
Hey, Brad Treliving, here's your job.
Yeah.
Trade one of your best players and make the team better while reducing the cap hit.
And by the way, 40 goals just left the room.
Yes. Hey, it's going to be difficult. I mean, the point I keep coming back to is, look, they've had a lot of disappointments with William Nylander. They could probably have some more disappointments without him. So there's nobody indispensable on this team. And I know they're going to keep Matthews. Of course, you keep your best player when it comes to Matthews, and I get that. But something does have to change. And
absolutely.
And we've been saying it. Maybe we've been saying it so long we're tired of saying it, and because nobody in power in Leafland has actually listened. Kyle Dubas was the closest to listening when he talked at the final press conferences of his career as Toronto general manager of the idea that, hey, maybe something like the Matthew Tkachuk trade would make sense for us. Remember that? We didn't hear Brendan Shanahan say anything of the sort, by the way, when he let Kyle Dubas go. Shanny seems to keep on with the group that we've got, and we'll see how it goes. It'll shake their way one day. So that's the reason I'm not particularly convinced they're going to trade Nylander before the start of the season, Tapman. And I understand. Do you think it might happen?
They have to make a trade.
Yeah.
Something has to go out, and Les has to come back. And as I said, hopefully the team is better for it. So that's either off the blue line where you're bringing some lower grit back, or it's the forward and a blue liner. I don't know how they do this, but I would suggest to you that it'd be much better to do it now than get played all season long by this and have to do it at the deadline, which could have a catastrophic effect, but the market may be good for him, or wait till next summer when he just says, see ya. I just don't know you want to be played by this.
Well, yeah. I mean, Brad Treliving had another player with a high skill ceiling in Johnny Gaudreau in Calgary who had the same agent as William Nylander, and guess what happened? He lost him for nothing in the offseason, right?
Well, that'd be the ultimate question. Could you afford to lose him for nothing? And you could say that for both. Siakam and Nylander, they both could actually walk out of here scot-free.
Well, in terms of dismantling the 2019 Raptors, Masai Ujiri has watched most of those guys walk out the door for nothing. When it comes, we know the story of Kawhi. They tried their best to keep him. He walked out the door for nothing. Gasol, Ibaka. I mean, Kyle Lowry at least brought back Precious Achiuwa. Then we saw Fred VanVleet. See ya for nothing. So if another piece of the 2019 Raptors walked out the door for nothing, we wouldn't be particularly shocked, would we?
No, but
there's precedent there.
But that's not going to leave us with much.
Not great asset management.
No, it's not. That's a big negative for asset management.
Yeah,
these are precarious situations.
But the thing is, if there's not a deal that you like, Jim, and that's the situation they're in. If you don't love the deals,
but walking out is not a solution. Having the guy walk away for nothing, not the solution.
Well, you get the year at least. You get the year.
Well, yeah. Well, or because it doesn't work out, you get that story trotted out every 2 weeks. Coming up at the top of the hour, David Naylor is going to talk football. He's at the Atlanta camp now in the NFL, and later on, Brendan Dunlop talking soccer. This is OverDrive.